You're listening to If Only I Were Wiser podcast, where Reyna Wilson brings together wisdom and raw life stories to provide encouragement and truth. So many times it's easy to become discouraged in your own pursuit of health because your story or circumstances look drastically different from your favorite influencer or even the expectations you had for yourself. If that is you, welcome! This space is for you to learn, breathe, and maybe just listen and see what wellness could look like for you. Hey friends, welcome back to the If Only I Were Wiser podcast. On today's episode, it's just me behind the mic chatting with you. So on today's episode, it's definitely one that I've been wanting to talk about and is a little bit more sensitive to the season that we're in right now and has definitely been on my heart. And that is making friends as a grown-up. It's so different and so wild, and definitely a topic I've been wanting to cover, especially considering we just moved, we're starting over at new duty station, and I'm having to walk through all of these things by myself. So I'm going to take you along for the ride, share a little bit about the things that I'm intentionally trying to do to make friends, wise friends, and build my village over again. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, before I get into a few specifics, I want to totally admit this is just from my perspective. I'm a full-time mom in a military community where military communities really have a lot more vulnerability. I feel like we have a little bit more of a faster capacity to build relationships because we're not here that long, and it's just a part of our lifestyle. So I'll say that I'm coming from a very niched community where we're all still trying to figure this out, but I think many of these things still apply. However, I can also recognize it would be very different if you're working full-time and you're still trying to find grown-up friends that you kind of mesh with. So here are just some of the few things that I've learned on how to make friends 101. So first things first, I think it really starts with neighboring well. Do you know your immediate neighbors? Do you know the people that you live next to? Whether you're listening and you're on a military base or in the suburbs, or you're a college student, do you know your neighbors? That was a conviction that came from our college church ministry. I think that taught that really well, and I've learned that pretty intimately in a military setting. For example, I had amazingly wonderful neighbors at our last duty station that became really sweet friends. How that all started? She showed up with cookies and just introduced herself into our lives, and it was beautiful. So Joseph and I had that conviction moving into this duty station that we wanted to be those people. We knew how much our neighbors meant to us coming from Texas to Georgia, and now being here, we were going to be the people that showed up with cookies. So that's what we did the first week we were here. I made cookies and I showed up to our neighbors and I introduced ourselves. Not saying that all of your neighbors will be instant best friends. That would be wonderful, but it definitely breaks the ice, so to say. And I get it. Maybe you're thinking, well, Reyna, we didn't just move into our house. You know, we've been here for several years and I've only had awkward eye contact and a wave across the street to my neighbors. But my challenge to you would be this. Be intentional where you're planted. Start where you're planted. So that may look like your coworkers. Have you put yourself out there to introduce yourself and have conversations, maybe not about work things at work? Have you met the other moms at the school pickup line? Have you introduced yourself at the library or on a play date? It's really hard for us to get wrapped up in our own space of thinking, what if they judge me? You know, like all the lies are circulating. What do they do? What if they're busy? What if they don't want to be my friend? But friend, I guarantee you the same things are going through their head as well. And I would say 90% of it is getting started where you are and being intentional where the Lord has you, and then putting yourself out there. And putting yourself out there for me, I would say, is step number 2. I would like to think I'm a pretty outgoing and vocal and extrovert kind of person, so I thrive on meeting other people. So if you're an introvert and you're just cringing listening to this, I'm with you, I'm holding your hand through this. But really, in order to make deep connections, somebody's got to initiate. So chances are, if you are the introvert, you usually got picked up by an extrovert friend. Hence, my introvert husband got stuck with me. Now, when you put yourself out there, again, there's room for discernment and wisdom and navigating how you handle these conversations. I definitely, like I said, am the kind of person that will absolutely love to hear your birth story. I want to hear all your childhood trauma and what are your sin patterns, you know? But I think this is where many of us might get stuck because we feel like we don't know what to say or how to engage in the conversation, because dating your friends is much like the ickiness of dating your spouse, right? Like nobody likes dating. It's messy, it's awkward, you still don't know each other, and you haven't gotten past that big wall of, oh, I really connect with this person. But you really have to date your friends in order to see if you guys mesh. So if you need conversation starters, here are just a few. I'm thinking through like interactions I've had recently at the park, for example. And again, in a military community, all of our answers, we kind of all start with the same questionnaire because we're in such a niche community. Like, where did you guys come from? Have you PCS soon? Are you going somewhere? Where's your family from? You know, what does your husband or wife do if they're active duty, kind of thing. So I'll extend this a little bit out towards non-military life. And you can really just start with similar questions to those. I mean, people love to talk about themselves. So ask them, what is their family like? What do they do on the weekends? Like all the typical like dating things, but just take out the romantic lens of that and get to know them. Even if it's not a like big commitment or major connect at your 30 minutes at the park or run through at the library, you are practicing these skills to really be intentional with your friend group and just building up your own self-confidence and meeting new people. So maybe at this point, you guys have totally hit it off at the park or at the library. You kind of have to ask for a second date, right? Like, and usually for us stay-at-home moms, it's, hey, let's go grab coffee, or let's meet up here, or let's meet at this playground next week at this time. And it's really being intentional and asking for phone numbers, like date intentionally, date your friends. And there have been really sweet ways that I've been able to connect with people through those interactions. And this is where you kind of have to start getting deep. And step 3 for me is making room for real conversations. I'm not saying that's going to be totally kid-free. You guys are going to be able to sit and have coffee for 3 hours, because in the reality of my life, that's not it. Like we're sitting in someone's living room, there's snacks and trash all over the floor, or we're in the middle of a really deep conversation and I'm asking them about their family and what is it like living so far and what are their, interactions with their mother-in-law that is really difficult, while all the while saying, hold please, I need to go grab my son because he's about to jump off the top of the slide, kind of conversations. But what I'm saying is make room for real conversations. I think the Lord absolutely blesses vulnerability when you have discernment and having vulnerable conversations. And I think that if we were to back up a little bit, when it comes through the like vetting process of building new relationships, you guys have to make sure that you're on the same page. Do you have the same values? Is faith something that is really important to you? Then you will probably connect with someone that has that same strength or perspective of faith as you do, compared to someone that may not have ever gone to church before. And I'm not saying that that's bad, but you may connect differently, just like shared values, right? Like you probably picked your spouse because you relatively like the same things, right? Like Joseph is a Star Wars fan, which I'm not about, and I'm a Harry Potter fan, and now we make that work, but we also both love ice cream and steak, so you have to pick your battles there. But I do think that in the conversation of making room for true authenticity, you guys have to have had several or at least superficial conversations to understand where that person is coming from. What are they value about their family, their marriage, their perspective on life? Do they go to church? Do they not go to church? Is there, food very important to them? Like I definitely would say I have loved geeking out with like my quote unquote crunchy friends that I have made versus friends that are like, nah, Reyna, I'm all about the food dye and all the Starbucks coffee. And I'm like, great, there's balance. So both of us will absolutely get along. And let's say at this point, you guys have really hit it off. You have similar shared values and you really want to learn how to love this person well. It's the same as dating, but how to date your friends. And one of the little simple ways that I have fallen in love with dating my quote girlfriends is sending out almost a personality or how can I love you survey. And so I literally just have like a list of things, of their favorite things on my phone. I text them like, hey, please fill this out. So I want to know if you're into Starbucks, what's your favorite Starbucks order? What are your favorite snacks? What coffee do you love? Do you even like coffee or tea? If you could have a simple joy, what would it be? Just because this is the most fun part of friendships for me, is really getting to love and serve that person. So if they put on their survey that they love Starbucks coffees or Ollipops, or it really makes them feel loved when they have words of affirmation or letters, or hey, picking up their kids for an hour so they can have some self-care time, I love to do that. And now I'm better equipped as a friend to serve them in the case that they say, hey, I've had a really hard day, my spouse is deployed, or we've got this going on in the family. And I'm like, great. I know that you guys are gluten free. I'm going to drop off all these snacks at your doorstep, and let me know a time when I can pick up the kids this week so you can go get your nails done, kind of thing. And that has truly brought me not only so much joy to serve the people around me, but I think it's added another layer of depth in my friendships, because there's intentionality there, right? And the same with your spouse. The more that you spend time with them and the more that you want to know them and want to love them, the deeper that relationship goes. And that's where I think the sweetness comes in building a village that stays and a village that feels like family. Hey friends, I want to let you in on a secret. I fell for the hype that digital resources were all the rage and the way to serve your community last year. Hence, really the birth of Return to Rest, my ultimate rest resource. Now, that was birthed from a place that I am really passionate about rest. I have realized that us as women, and especially mothers, are lacking in ultimate rest. Rest in our creator, rest in our bodies, because we're juggling so many things. We're trying to steward the health of our family and our kids and our spouse and ourselves, and we just keep chasing. Now, it doesn't matter the beef liver that you're taking or the red light sessions that you're doing if you are not rested. So, while Return to Rest really meets that need and gives you tangible ways to plug in actual habits that will reset your rest rhythms, I realized that something was lacking, and that is tangible accountability and community. So since you guys are my loyal listener family, I'm letting you behind the curtain a little bit. Over the next couple months, I'm creating just that, taking Return to Rest to a whole new level and providing tangible accountability and community in a way that really will have to force us to transform our rest rhythms. Otherwise, friends, burnout is not just around the corner. It's going to be the name of the game for our family and for our hearts. So, if you need something to chew on until that comes out, go ahead and snag Return to Rest. I just dropped the price by $20 because I really want it to serve you. I want it in your hands, and it's a reusable resource for whatever season you're in. And keep an eye out, as name pending for this new creation is coming. I'm so excited, and I really hope that it'll bless you, because I know you need it just as I do. Now, I know you're probably thinking, Reyna, this all sounds great in practice, but I have been in my place for 6 months, a year. I've met my neighbors, they don't like me, or you just really struggled to build community. I want to say I get it. We are moving every 2 to 3 years, and sometimes things just don't click. And I also want to encourage you that this may take a little bit of time. We've been here for a month. We're still navigating our own personal transition as a family, as well as re-transitioning into a whole new community. I get it. It's hard, it's uncomfy, and it puts us out of our comfort zone. So you are not alone in it, and it may take a little bit of time. So I encourage you to keep pressing forward. Now, I want to just recap a little bit, because we're going to keep this episode short and sweet. How to make friends 101. Start where you're planted. Neighbor really well. Have you met your neighbors? Do you know the people that you brush shoulder to shoulder with on a regular basis? And this can be super simple if you are just keeping your head on a swivel and seeing where you overlap with other people. Maybe it's the gym. Maybe it's the people at the pickup line, Maybe it is just really starting with your neighbors and committing, you know what? I'm going to make cookies or X, Y, and Z for my neighbors this week, and at least introduce myself and go from there. That's a really good practice. And honestly, I found very helpful in the smallest, low-risk kind of ways to put myself out there and get out of my comfort zone, at least for those initial introductions. The next step is getting real. Make room for real conversations. Be honest about your values and convictions, and just get to know the other person. Like I said, instead of dating your spouse, you're dating your friends, and you're seeing where you match or you don't. But this allows room for true authenticity and deeper connection and intimacy. Then, of course, you can throw in your favorite things survey and get to know how to love your friends really well. The other thing I want to point out is a very real threat, and that is the enemy, friends. The enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and we know that because of John and his reminder in Scripture. Now, what could make your family most vulnerable as you're trying to build community? It's fear. The fear of being judged. It's the fear of vulnerability. It's the fear of authenticity, because you are most vulnerable in your spiritual health and the health of your family is when you're trying to build a village, because these are the people that are going to be around you and hopefully point you towards Christ. Now, this is super important. In the season of building community, you need to be attuned to spiritual discernment. So lean into prayer, friend. Pray for your friends, pray for your home, pray for your community, and pray for the people that you would have eyes and ears to see and hear, where you need to not only serve them, but maybe where the Lord is trying to serve you through the other people around you. Believe me, I have fallen for the lie too that prayer is just a second-rate spiritual habit. However, I've been recently really convicted about the power of prayer, especially when it comes to discerning your community. Prayer is what will get you spiritually attuned to what you need to see in the people around you and what will best fit your family for the people in that season. I also want to affirm you that making friends as a grown-up is really hard. We're not in college anymore. We don't have our best friend across the dorm room. We're not running into hundreds of thousands of people on a daily basis walking through campus or into class. And that was a really sweet season, and I learned a lot about what it means to make friends. But I think through the military and the blessing that is, growing up and making friends as an adult is totally different, especially when it seems like your circle of people gets smaller and smaller. It's okay too. That is another thing that I've recently learned is the depth of your friendships will totally change based on the season that you're in. And I think the Lord has certain people for specific seasons, and it may not mean that they're forever friends, right? We see growing up in college and as a teen, we all want those ride or die people. And I would say that the Lord has blessed me with a handful of those, but I had to manage my expectation that just because a friend is a friend during this specific season doesn't mean that they'll always be there forever. And that's not bad. But I think that as our values change, as our families change, whether you go from single to married to a parent, those are major life stages, which means you might have major changes in your friends and the people that are surrounding your immediate family. And maybe you're listening to this and you're like, Reyna, I'm single and I don't have a lot of ride or die friends, or I just lost my whole friend group. Maybe you're a mom in a new community and you feel very alone and you don't know even where to start. And maybe you had some really rough patches with other moms in your circle. It's messy because relationships and real friendships get messy. It means asking for forgiveness when something goes wrong. It means being transparent when you're hurt. Even in my own friendships, I've had the heart check of having to understand that my family of origin story plays a huge role in how I interact with others, and I can't hold everyone to that same expectation, especially when I know that our values may be different, or maybe we are on the same page, but we have different convictions. I have learned as making adult friendships, there's a lot of room for grace. But what I think will hold you back in the midst of moving forward is the spirit of fear, is the spirit of insecurity, and it's the spirit of feeling maybe sometimes that you're not good enough, that you've had friendships that have blown up in your face, and now you're believing the lie that maybe you're not a good enough friend. And that might be true, but thank God that we have the grace to ask for forgiveness, move forward, and really just start over in confidence. So friend, if you're listening to this and you are feeling discouraged and unworthy and really just alone, let me encourage you in this. Motherhood, marriage, a life just in general is really hard and messy. So you have to have a village around you that are going to love and support you. And this may take time, but lean into prayer, lean into the people that you do have, and maybe it means taking the people around you and going an extra step deeper, confessing and confiding in them, and maybe being honest that you don't feel good enough, that you don't feel the friendship is at the depth that you desire, or you really might just need some help. One of the most sanctifying things that I have recently learned just in my motherhood friendships specifically is that I have to reach a whole new level of vulnerability, confession, and honesty when I may feel hurt or need to work through something. Because a lot of the time, there are people around you that want to serve you, want to love you, but don't know unless you ask. Friend, let me pray for you before we close. God, thank you so much for this community. Thank you for the people that are listening that I know just want to build healthy friendships. God, I pray that you would put people in their life that want to love them, serve them, and authentically be there for them in ways that they have yet to imagine your grace through the hands of other people. And Lord, I pray that this would be a reminder of your ultimate friendship and relationship through Christ. I pray that you would continue to be with the women that are lonely and needing people, but maybe just haven't found the right people yet. God, thank you for meeting our needs, and I thank you for giving us people in a village that reflects your kingdom. And help us to trust you in the process as you're bringing the right people for our corner. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen. Well, thank you for listening, friend. Thanks for tuning into this episode, and I'm sure that there will be a lot more thoughts after I hit publish on this episode, but I'm also thankful that this will be a continuation of a conversation that we all are learning to process. So stay tuned for all things return to rest and a special project coming up, and I can't wait to see you guys on the next episode. Thank you for listening, friend. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you don't want to miss any wisdom or encouragement, be sure to subscribe to the show. And don't forget to rate and review. Your feedback means so much and helps our community grow. If you're looking for more wellness wisdom and free resources, head over to livingwiselywell.com or get connected with me on Instagram at wiselywell. And if you're looking for a break from the hurried health lifestyle, check out my Return to Rest resource for tangible ways to slow down and finally find rest.